All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we are going deep, like really deep, into a fascinating and, kinda unsettling part of the human mind.
You ever meet someone who, I don't know, just seems a little too perfect? I mean, you know the type I'm talking about. They're super capable, really mature, maybe they're a big shot in their field, but when you actually talk to them, something feels off, right? It's like you're talking to this perfectly polished shell, but the person inside just feels hollow, almost like they're just acting the part of an adult. And hey, they're killing it, but it just doesn't feel real.
Well, believe it or not, there's actually a psychoanalytic term for that. The analyst Donald Meltzer, he called it pseudo-maturity, and it's exactly what it sounds like. He saw it as this really fragile, as-if personality. So on the outside, you see this totally competent, functioning adult, but deep down, underneath all that, there's this constant nagging feeling that they're a total fraud. A deep confusion about who they even are, and this sense that their whole life is just one big performance.
So, okay, where does a feeling like that even come from? I mean, we all get imposter syndrome now and then, right? But this is way, way deeper. And this is where Donald Meltzer's explanation gets, well, pretty radical.
He basically said, the answer isn't about what we do on the outside. Nope. It's all about a secret, hidden world that we build inside our own minds. And to really get it, we've got to take a journey inward.
So, the first step on this wild ride is something called projective identification. Sounds complicated, but let's break it down. Imagine it like this. 1, you take a part of yourself that you just can't deal with, and you kind of split it off in your mind. 2, you fantasize about shoving that part inside somebody else. For an infant, this might be their mother. And 3, now that that piece of you is inside them, it tries to control them from within. Pretty wild, huh?
And that space, that imagined, fantasized space inside the other person, that's it. That's what Meltzer called the Claustrum. We're not talking about a real physical place, of course. It's a mental space, a psychic one. Think of it like a claustrophobic internal prison where that unwanted part of our personality goes to hide out, try to take control, and in the end, just gets trapped.
Look, I get it. This is a pretty out there concept. So to really wrap our heads around it, let's actually take a tour of this hidden world. Let's see what it's really like for the piece of us that gets stuck in there.
So Meltzer actually mapped out this internal prison. He called the different areas compartments. You can see he laid out 3 main ones, and each one creates a totally different way of seeing the world. Like, if a part of you hides out in the head compartment, it starts to live in this world of like intellectual snobbery. But if another part hides in the rectal compartment, well, it sees reality as nothing but pure tyranny and control. The main point here is this. No matter which room that piece of us gets stuck in, its whole view of reality gets twisted by the vibe inside.
And here you can really see the massive difference between a life of, genuine growth and the life of this intruder. Because here's the kicker. Meltzer argued that no matter which compartment that part of you ends up in, the experience is always defined by the exact same set of terrifying, isolating feelings.
So what's it feel like? Well, first off, a deep, deep sense of being a fraud. You always feel like an imposter. And you can't be sincere. How could you be? Your very presence in this secret space is wrong. So that leads to this constant, awful fear of being found out and kicked out. And since you're seeing the world from this hidden, kind of parasitic spot, your entire view of everything outside, real relationships, love, kindness, it all becomes incredibly cynical.
I mean, Meltzer's own words really hit it home. He says the person living in this state is a transgressor, an imposter, a presumptuous person, a fraud, potentially a traitor. Just think about that. You're basically an exile from anything real, from genuine connection. You can only experience life secondhand, through the person you've mentally invaded.
Okay, so I know this is a fascinating, but let's be honest, super abstract theory. So why should we care? What's the point? Well, the point is that this inner prison, this hidden claustrum, it has massive, devastating consequences for how we actually live our lives in the real world. It ends up shaping everything, from our personal relationships all the way to big political dynamics.
And this quote right here, it just nails the result. The source material actually points to Shakespeare's Lady Macbeth as a perfect literary example of this whole thing.
Remember how in her grab for power, her mind is emptied of the milk of human kindness? That's it. That is the exact worldview that's born from this mental prison. Real emotion gets thrown out, and it's replaced by this cold, cynical, and in the end, totally self-destructive need for control.
And that need for control? It becomes absolutely everything in the most tyrannical of the compartments, what Meltzer called the rectal world. Inside that particular mental prison, like gets scarily simple. The source material explains that the person trapped in there has only two options. That's what this two represents. Two choices. You either conform completely to this cruel authoritarian system, or you become one of its cruel lieutenants. You enforce the tyranny yourself, just so you don't end up its victim.
And this, right here, is where the theory stops being abstract and becomes painfully real. We can literally see these internal prisons play out in the real world. The elitist snobbery, that's from the head/chest compartment. The obsessive addictions, the genital compartment. And that authoritarian cruelty, that's straight out of the rectal compartment. See? These aren't just weird psychoanalytic ideas. They describe patterns of human pain that we can all recognize.
Okay. Wow. This all sounds incredibly bleak, doesn't it? It's basically a description of a mental prison that seems impossible to escape. So, you have to ask, is there a way out?
And the answer is yes. Meltzer believed there was a way out. But the path out starts with something really simple. Just recognizing the prison is even there. For him, that was the whole point of therapy. The long, hard process of helping someone become aware of this hidden world. And yeah, it means giving up the weird, stolen comfort of that prison. But it's literally the only way to step out into real freedom and have real, authentic relationships.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But it leaves us with a pretty provocative question to chew on. See, Meltzer's theory isn't just about severe cases. He believed these kinds of processes are actually universal, that we all do this to some extent. So it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What hidden worlds do you inhabit? And what parts of you might be living there right now?